Good, beautiful morning, everybody. What a beautiful sunshining day. I was already able to water the grass I'm trying to grow. So we had some overgrown shrub trees in our yard, and Butch, thank God, he came over and ground them down into the ground. We then had to clean up all the stick mess and then plant grass seed. And I'm pretty terrible at watering the grass. And if you don't water your grass seed when you lay it, you're probably not going to get the best grass, if any. So I was able to get that done this morning. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is, well, let's get my window out here. I remember jumping from job to job to job when I was a young kid, 20, even in my early 30s. I remember doing that, thinking that I'm just going to come across a better opportunity, right? What I failed to realize was I never gave one place long enough to excel at, well enough to get rewarded for the growth I made inside the company. That was my fault. And I've noticed something even more in life. So what I did is I bounced from job to job and job, and I always wondered why I could never get nowhere. I never could get anywhere. I could never get ahead in life. I could never get money in my bank account. Yada, yada, yada. The list went on and on and on. And I just thought, oh, all companies suck. That's not true. Is I sucked as an employee. It's just the facts. That's not like beat myself up Scotty this morning. I just was a shitty employee. What do you mean, Justin, you were a shitty employee? Yeah, when I was at work, I worked hard. 2 months, 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe a full season, full year to a company and expect to make the money that the CEO of that company makes. That is not how, look, first of all, that's not how the marketplace works. And that's not how moving up in life works. It can take decades to move up in an organization, in a corporation, in a business, in anywhere in life. It can take decades to get to where you want to get to. But I, being the impatient individual I was, thought that somebody was just going to recognize me and all of a sudden pay me all kinds of money. Look, man, and I would show up and I would stay over and I would work overtime, yada, 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 yada. All the crap, right? But then I realized later on in life, oh, showing up doesn't earn somebody a raise. Working over may eventually, right? It may increase your hourly rate eventually or your salary eventually. But just showing up and performing the task they're asking for you to perform is the standard. That's entry level stuff. And if that's all I would do, right? I would work hard. I worked hard. But it was only just showing up and doing the bare minimum not to get fired and still get a paycheck. I will tell you this right now, that will never get you recognized anywhere you work. Just showing up is mandatory. That's part of why you got hired, right? That's part of why we got hired. So my whole mindset was terrible. And I've seen this recently in life too, with different individuals. I've seen it, you know. The expectations we have for just showing up is bananas. I don't know. We are not a huge company, okay? But I know one way to bring super value to a company is making the higher ups day easier. That'll automatically add you value. And I'm not going to get into what you should do. I'm just talking about my past experience and what I've learned over the past decade. That just showing up isn't going to be enough. We'll get entry level pay, maybe a couple dollars more if you're there for a year or two, whatever, our entire lives if we just show up. Showing up's part of the battle. Showing up is part of what you signed up for, right? Now, when I say you, I'm talking about me. When I signed up, going above and beyond for a long enough period of time is what gets people to move up. Lightening the load of the owner, CEO, manager's back is what's going to get you recognition. I remember going to work for a roofing company once, and I remember that the guy is saying, "Hey, slow down a bit, you're making me look bad." And hear me out. I know now that was stupid for me even to listen to them, but I didn't know that then. I thought, oh yeah, you're right, I probably am. So I'll slow down a little bit. Well, all I was doing is setting up my own demise for my current boss to recognize my work ethic. So I would slow down. So I didn't make the rest look bad. When in all actuality, the rest were making themselves look bad. It wasn't me that was making them look bad. What I was doing was I was setting a bar and setting a standard to what if the other ones didn't uphold, they were not going to increase in their pay and in their job or career or whatever. So one thing I would strongly encourage, and I'm not giving employment advice or business advice, nothing of that. I'm not. But if you want to stand out, be willing to go above and beyond, even beyond when the time clock ends. Learn the systems you work at as soon as you can. And if you don't have a clear layout of what those systems are, ask your boss, hey, can I get a complete SOP of what my systems entail? What the daily tasks entail? That way, when I go home, I can look them over for 30 minutes a day or whatever until I have the system down and you don't have to otherwise instruct me all day long every single day. Those little things right there will raise the eyebrows of the person that hired you. They will know you have ambition. And no company's looking for somebody that don't have ambition. Nobody. There's not a company out there that's like, hey, I just want you to be lazy all day and do the bare minimum to survive. No company's doing that. No company's looking for that. Did they get that? Yeah, absolutely, because you can't read through everybody. So my whole thing about that rant, about where I was and how I jumped around from job to job to job when I was a young kid, I was never able to give anything long enough to excel at or master or become great at, right? Because I jumped around. So what I've learned is where our focus is, energy flows, right? Energy flows where our focus is. So what I learned is people will say, don't mix your personal life with your job or your career. I'm here to tell you that's a crock of bullshit. If your life's in shambles and all over the place outside of work, your work ethic's going to be all over the place. You gotta have consistency in both areas. You can't have a crazy bananas life and come to work and shut that off perfectly and tune in as good as you can be if your personal life was put together. That's just the truth. Look, people have shit that happens in their life every day. I do, you do, everybody does have shit in their life, right? We all have things we go through. However, if our focus at home is in disarray, it's all over, and it's not intentional, you will bring that to work with you, and people will see that. I do not care how much you think you can disguise it. If our focus is at all the problems we're having at home or in our personal life, when we come to work, it'll be a direct reflection of our work ethic. Now, can some people come to work and turn that off and be hardly noticeable? Sure, they can. Some can. However, imagine how much better they would perform and excel at their career if they were able to work them things out at home and all their focus could be on building their career. They would grow exponentially more, like bananas more. It's just truthful. It's not a stab at anybody. I'm talking about myself in my past, right? So wherever our focus is, energy goes to that. If we wake up every day like I did for multiple years, life sucks, life's not fair, yada, 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 poor me, the guy I was, right? If you wake up every single morning like that, it's going to reflect our career or jobs, which is going to reflect our income earned per year. It's crazy how all that aligns. Those that have their life in line with their goals, morals, and values always earn more than those that don't. When I'm speaking of them, I'm speaking of my past current situation. So where our focus is mentally will ultimately determine our entire outcome in life, good or bad. We are our own best investment. Everybody's always looking for the next crypto or the next, what can I invest in? That you. If we want to up our earning, if we want to up our abilities, if we want to up our value in life as a whole, invest in you. But Justin, that's selfish. Well, I'm here to tell you a little bit. This life's a little bit selfish. And if you're not a little bit selfish, you're going to struggle all your life. There's healthy selfishness and unhealthy selfishness. Nobody's going to prep your meal for you. Nobody's going to increase your value in life but you. Nobody. I don't care who you are. I don't care. Nobody but us sets our value in life. Nobody. We do it. We accept what the company's willing to pay us by the value we're bringing in there. If you can invest in yourself and become ungodly invaluable to a company, you get to set your own wages. People are like, that's not true. Yeah, it is. How do you think a CEO becomes a CEO? That had nothing to do with building the company. How do you think they earn millions of dollars a year? Read a few books. Just read a few books. How do you think they become worth millions of dollars in revenue per year or in income per year without starting that company? You think they were just randomly, let's just try Tina out over here and see if she does well? No. Tina provided so much value to that company, it was undeniable that she was the person for that position. That's how Tina makes $1 to $10 million a year being a CEO and never started that company. We hold the reins to the value we want to become in life, because we do live in a capitalist country that allows us to invest into ourselves enough to be able to set our rate. You can do that. Now, maybe not at the job you work at, but if you became so valuable that the company could not operate the same way without you, here's most of our problem, and it was my problem too. We tend to be arrogant and prideful and we think our shit don't, we think we're the best thing that's ever happened since Jesus, whatever. We're really not. You're no different than the next person showing up and going to work. We got ego problems that think we're so much more valuable than we are without putting any energy and investment into increasing the value that we do bring. Just because we breathe doesn't mean we're worth $1 million a year or $500,000 or $250,000 or $100,000 or $80,000. The great part about that is, I've learned in life, is investing into ourselves isn't discriminatory. It doesn't discriminate against anybody. Anybody could say, hey, guess what? I'm going to disappear for 2 years and I'm going to invest into myself mentally, physically, emotionally, so I can provide the most value to wherever I decide to work, that they're going to move me up the ladder. There ain't a single soul that cannot do that. I've never ever met a single soul, and it's free to invest in yourself. Free. Cost zero. Well, you're probably already paying an internet bill, so you got to do some research. That's free. So if we're focusing on self-development and improving ourselves to become of the most value that we possibly can in life, and you get into the right company, not all companies are going to value you. That's just true. And if you get into the right company, they're going to notice you. It might not be the first month. It might not even be the first 6 months to a year. But they're going to notice the value you bring, and they're going to pay you what you want, because they're not going to want to function without you. You know, if I would have knew that in my 20s, I would have done nothing but invest into myself from 20 years old till 30. Nothing. Not a going out, not a hanging out on the weekends, not wasting entire weekends, not jumping from job to job to job to job to job to job to job, thinking that's the answer when that's the worst thing you can actually do for yourself. One, it makes your resume look terrible. Just being honest. Number two, you never give a place long enough to even think about seeing the value that you may be worth. On that note, wherever your focus may be today can be altered. Because where your focus is, you will literally manifest that into your life. If we wake up with a shit attitude and everything's shitty and poor me, poor, your life, like my life used to, is going to suck beyond belief, and you cannot blame anybody else. I don't care what happened in childhood. When you become an adult, you cannot erase that stuff. It's our obligation to deal with that and grow from that. Everybody's went through their own shit. So by where our focus is where your mind is. Where your mind is, you manifest that into your life. You ever hear of the law of attraction? There's some reality behind that. If you're thinking you could never get past $45,000 a year, and that's just where your mind is at, well, congratulations, that's where you're going to be at for the rest of your life. If you cannot think bigger than that, that is where you will stay. That's just facts. No little fairy god's just gonna come, because you're never, if you can't see past that 45 grand a year, you are never gonna put in any more energy than the 45 grand a year. So when I say where your focus is, energy flows. So if your focus in it is, I can only become worth 45 grand a year, that is all the energy you're going to give life and your day, and the investment into yourself. And that is what you're going to manifest for the rest of your life. Now, knowing you can do that and create that 45 grand What if you just switch it up a little bit and be like, no, I think I can do 450 grand a year. You might laugh about that, but that laughing is what's got you at 45 grand a year. If you can think bigger, if you can invest into yourself, if you can shift your focus from this is what I'm going to settle for to this is going to be the reason I stretch for the 450 grand a year, you will see how creative one's mind can become to get. This isn't no philosophy. You don't have to be a genius to figure it out. It's how the brain works. If you feel like you can become a value of $1 million of work a year, you are going to put in the work of what a millionaire would put in the work of. It is not going to be a 40-hour work week. It might look something like 60 to 80 for the first 5 to 10 years. But you will put that work in with that vision out there, knowing you're working towards something, and you will gradually pull towards that number. You'll gradually magnify towards that number. That's when they're talking about the law of attraction. That is what it is. But you cannot do that with the $45,000 a year mindset. It'll never, ever happen. It cannot happen because your brain is programmed to believe you are only worth 45 grand a year because my degree told me that this is all this position will pay. So you believe that's your cap. And if you believe your cap is, I don't care if it's 30 grand, I don't care if it's 100 grand, I don't care if it's 150 million. If you believe your cap is there, that's all the further your brain is going to be willing to push you. And I'm not trying to be some financial advisor. I'm just telling you very basic. Ooh, something's going on with my car. I'm just explaining very basic how the brain works. I'm going to give you an example. It's going to be a really easy example, and everybody will probably be able to relate with it. Have you ever bought a new make or model of a vehicle? And then all of a sudden you've seen hundreds of them same exact vehicles everywhere around you? Those cars were always there. This is funny how the brain works. Those vehicles were always there. That make was always there. Your mind just wasn't focused there because that make meant nothing to you at that moment. The signs of opportunity are out here. The ability to invest into yourself is out here. Everywhere. But if we have a closed-minded, this is my cap, we will never look for those opportunities. Our eyes will never see them because we don't believe they exist. You don't have to be smart to understand that. I was not a high GPA student, but it is literally how it works. So if we know that's how it works, why would we want to put a cap on what we're capable of? That doesn't drive me nuts. What it does is it inspires me. Why do so many of us in life be told the cap so we believe that's all we can become? When in all actuality, millions of people have proved, upon millions of people have proved, that to be not true. See, our energy we put into our day matches our focus in our brain. So, you're not going to put the energy in if you feel like you're going to be stuck at 40 to 45 grand for the next 30 years. And then you're going to retire and you're going to live in poverty. Basically, that's what it is. You're going to wind up because they're going to slash your money in half. They're going to take money for this. They're going to give you a little bitty money check so you can pay your whatever you owe left or whatever, your utility bills. That's called poverty, basically. So if your focus is there, this is why this is one of the reasons depression is so high in this country. A lot of it's got to stem from because of our limiting beliefs of what we're capable of, amongst many other things. So if we're focusing on that's it, well, no wonder why we're not going to have energy to push through and try to do more in life. Why would you? Why would you? If I knew I was going to make that amount of income for the next 30 years of my life, why would I have drive to go any farther? And that was my cap. This is all it's going to be. Why would you possibly push any harder to manifest more? Well, your brain's not dumb. It's going to tell you there's no more. So you're not going to push any harder. You are going to give the bare minimum when you show up and not go the extra mile to increase your value and your family's value throughout life. Because why would you if you believe you're capped here? So I'm going to leave it on this. Investing in yourself is free. Anybody can do it. I don't know a single soul that can't do it. Anybody can do it, and it's one of the best investments you can ever make. Better than the stock market, better than crypto, it's better than the daily lotto. I mean, it is the best investment any one of us can make. I love you all. I hope you guys have a blessed Wednesday.